Something's beginning to develop in the Middle East, not just in Israel, but also in Iran and in Egypt that need to be touched on. Starting in Iran, an article coming from Reuters says that Iran's incoming President Hassan Rouhani on Tuesday offered an olive branch to the United States in talks on Tehran's disputed nuclear program, raising hopes of progress after years of stalemate. Rouhani, is seen in the West as a relatively moderate leader, told his first news conference since taking the oath on Sunday that he was seriously determined to resolve the dispute and was ready to enter serious and substantive negotiations. Hopes for a diplomatic resolution to the nuclear issue have risen with Rouhani's victory over conservative rivals in June, when voters chose him to replace hardliner Mahmoud Ahmadinejad with a cleric whose watchword is moderation. Now, Mr. Rouhani went on in the article to say that he is not in a position to give up his nuclear program at this time, but he would like to sit down with the world powers and talk. And this is what Russia had to say. It says, hoping to seize on Rouhani's appointment, Russia on Tuesday said fresh talks between Iran and world powers must not be delayed and should take place by mid-September. Rouhani has yet to name his nuclear negotiator. Now, frankly, I do believe that at some point in time that Iran will come to terms with the United States, either through a pact through the Antichrist, which will encompass many nations, or it could come before that time. Maybe the United States and the the United States and Iran will come to terms, and that will be one obstacle in the Middle East that will be resolved, even before the Antichrist comes on the world scene. Now, moving on to Egypt, as you know, there is a problem going on in Egypt that could result in a near civil war. I don't believe that will take place, but Stratford is reporting that the EU will continue to mediate efforts in Egypt. Right now, the European Union is in Egypt trying to take care of the problem that has arisen in Egypt. And this is what it says: the European Union will continue its work toward a democratic transition to end the crisis in Egypt, Kuna reported August 7th. A spokesman for EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton said a special representative for the southern Mediterranean has been in Egypt for several days. Aram Online reported that the Egyptian presidency announced that talks between foreign delegates and the Muslim Brotherhood had failed, blaming the Brotherhood for a lack of progress. Egyptian presidential media advisor Ahmed El Manani, I guess that's how you pronounce it, said international pressure to resolve the crisis had surpassed international norms. Ashton's spokesman said he was unaware of reports that the international efforts had failed, according to Kuna. So the European Union is going to continue to get involved in peace talks in the Middle East. And I believe as time goes on that you will see them take a greater role, not only in Egypt but also in the talks between Israel and the Palestinians. And this is speculation on my part, but don't be surprised if they get involved in the peace efforts in Syria in a more greater way as well. But it probably won't come into full force until after the rapture of the church and the rise of the Antichrist, in which I believe he will come on the scene and he will miraculously resolve the issue not only in Egypt, maybe that'll be taken care of beforehand, I don't know, but also in Syria, and I believe that he's going to bring peace with many. But I can see a possible pattern in where the European Union is beginning to make inroads into the Middle East and getting to, in an attempt to get involved in the peace process and the resolution of the many conflicts or possible conflicts that are going on. And as you know, the United States has determined that the negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis have been slated for 9 months and could be longer if needed. I've heard some say that it's interesting that it's a 9-month period. That is the term of a pregnancy. And as we know, the Bible says that as the time draws near, that birth pains will continue and increase. Now, that's a clever analogy that I heard somebody come up with. I've heard several people say something to that nature. But I still see the United States failing in the end and turning it over to the European Union for its final resolution. And of course, the European Union will have no better luck until the rise of the Antichrist, who will miraculously make this happen. But if in fact the 9 months are a determination in prophecy, that is fine with me. I can. That would be phenomenal, in fact. But getting back to Iran, just to give Iran an incentive to work something out with the United States, Israel has said that they are capable of striking Iran alone, and will if that is necessary. Now turning to the peace talks, or the negotiations, I should say, between Israel and the Palestinians. As you know, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has promised to hold a national referendum on any possible surrender of land that may go to the Palestinian Authority. This is what the article says. In a survey conducted last week by the Israel Democracy Institute, a full 62.5% of respondents said they were against surrendering Judah, Samaria, and the eastern half of Jerusalem for the creation of a Palestinian state. On the other hand, previous polls have shown that a majority of Israelis do support a two-state solution to the current conflict, but they clearly do not agree to meet Arab land demands in full. Various strategic and historically important areas, in particular the city of Jerusalem, are red lines for most Israelis. And it goes on to say that unfortunately the results of such surveys are likely to be ignored by the Israeli delegation now negotiating with the Palestinian Authority under the auspices of the Obama administration in Washington. Those talks are taking place under a shroud of secrecy, so whatever concessions Israel might be preparing to make, whether willingly or under duress, will not be known until the last minute. And that's probably the likely outcome of what will take place when this peace accord is finally does come to its conclusion. I have to believe that Israel will be forced into some situations that simply will not be advantageous to the country as a whole. But as you know, U.S. generals at this very moment are working on Israel's security concerns right as we speak. And I believe that will be a big issue when the peace accord finally is resolved. Israel's peace will likely be shared by both the United States and the European Union. And it is also likely that the United States will probably increase military aid and other aid to Israel and the Palestinians in an attempt to try to get the two sides to agree to whatever it is that will finally come at the end. But that's where we are at this time. Right now we have the two sides that are sitting down together in secret talks. We have Egypt, where the European Union is trying to resolve the issue there. Iran, the United States, I believe, will resolve their issues sometime in the future. I'm sure it will not be to Israel's liking, but I believe that it will be something the United States will agree to. But in order to calm Israel's fears, they will continue to guarantee their security. Now, as far as Syria is concerned, I believe that peace situation is still yet future and probably will be resolved by the Antichrist himself. But the next 6 to 9 months or a year are going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. But if you don't know the Lord right now, today is the day of salvation. This is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.